Not dense forests, not rugged mountainous terrain. Wild boars here do not hide in the bushes. They roam, move in packs, and are always alert. So, it is not easy to hunt them. I joined a group of local hunters. In the 24-hour hunting challenge, I followed them around the marked areas, learned to listen, observe, and understand each faint footprint on the dry land. What was special about today's hunting trip? Please follow along. Less than 20 minutes after arriving at the meeting point, we approached the first targets. This was a large herd of wild boars of all sizes, from giant to small. They were digging in the ground for food, completely unaware that death was approaching, carefully approaching to get the perfect shooting angle. Now, the trigger was pulled lightly, the bullet whizzed. One target fell on the spot. No reaction, no escape. The start could not have been smoother. Without time to celebrate the victory, I quickly got into position, continued to fire the next shots, determined to take down as many targets as possible. After taking down the first herd of pigs, we moved by car to go deeper into the center of the grassland. Unexpectedly, this wild pig dared to appear right in my sights. Such a good opportunity was definitely not to be missed. Holding the gun firmly, decisively pulling the trigger. Another one was shot down while running away.
Do you hold these to 100?
We moved to the neighboring grass field. A large herd of pigs was moving inside, not knowing that we were approaching. As they passed through the gap between the trees, the hunting team immediately deployed a pincer movement. Continuous shots were fired from 3 directions. In less than a minute, 3 were down. Screams, the sound of trampling feet, then silence. Without checking, everyone knew that the attack had been effective. We stopped by a small lake. The dogs seemed to have discovered something. They started to search everywhere. To escape the pursuit, it jumped into the lake. However, that was a wrong choice. I raised my gun, not in a hurry, aiming accurately at the target. We almost lost the trail, but one of the hunters in the team discovered a small sign at the edge of the forest. The ground was slightly churned. The scratch marks were still fresh. Following that direction, not long after, a wild boar appeared from the herd. There was no chance of escape. One shot, one kill.
Got him.
After a long, tiring, but very successful day, we decided to return. However, luck came. We continued to discover more targets. No one had time to say anything. No one needed a signal. My hand had squeezed the trigger before I even realized I was acting on reflex. The last shot rang out in the golden afternoon light. A perfect shot. The animal fell without a sound. 24 hours of hunting with the local hunters was a challenge, but also a lesson in speed, patience, and absolute precision. Wild boars in the grasslands are not easy to fool. But today, we won. Last weekend, I joined a hunting trip with the local villagers. They had often spoken of the wild boars as destructive creatures, since the animals frequently ruined everything they planted. That's why my neighbors hoped I could help reduce the number of wild boars here and limit the damage they cause. As a professional hunter, I'm always ready for the fight. If you're interested in my journey, then what are you waiting for? Let's get started. Around 8 a.m., while following the trail running along the hillside, an unusual rustling sound came from the bushes by the roadside. We froze and observed carefully. A dark figure darted out like lightning. It was an adult wild boar leading its herd, with dozens of them rushing across the road. Without any further hesitation, I fired a series of consecutive shots, taking down 2 right on the spot. However, there were too many of them. Although we couldn't wipe out the whole herd, this was still a very positive result.
What?
Following the traces left by the wild boars, we tried to search for their hiding spot. The sudden appearance of the wild boar made the farmers quite confused. Look at this. That's an impressive trophy. Huge in size. It must weigh over 100 kilograms.
Az daha gel. Gel.
After the impressive trophies in the morning, I became even more excited about this hunting trip. The signal sounded once again. The pack of dogs barked non-stop, causing a wild boar to panic and burst out from the forest. Not missing the opportunity, I quickly pulled the trigger and took down the target with a perfect shot in the blink of an eye. The feeling of victory is now spreading through me non-stop. It's truly amazing. Just a few minutes later, I was already on the mountainside, lying in ambush for another wild boar. As soon as it appeared, my gunshot rang out immediately. The wild boar collapsed and then rolled down the slope. Everything happened quickly, but the final result was beyond expectation. The target was completely taken down. Our fighting spirit was encouraged, and we kept searching without rest. A lone boar ran through the bushes, and I carefully followed its every move. As soon as it entered my sights, I immediately pulled the trigger several times in a row, completely eliminating this destructive creature. But it didn't stop there. I quickly returned to a focused state to search for other wild boars. On the mountainside, my dog was still barking loudly. In a nearby bush, a wild boar was trying to hide, but it was no use. I tried to approach it to take it down more easily. In the moment the boar intended to charge at me, the gun in my hands finished it off just in time. Even though it was already the end of the day, I still wanted to hunt a few more wild boars.
Çok iyi.
A wild boar suddenly dashed across. I quickly raised my gun and pulled the trigger repeatedly. After that series of shots, my teammates and I managed to take down one more target. Trying to hunt a few more wild boars, we eventually decided to head home. Today's hunt only comes to a temporary close because we will have to continue our efforts in hunting and controlling the wild boar population, bringing a peaceful life to the local people. The video ends here. Did today's hunt get you excited? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to see more thrilling hunts. Goodbye and see you again. Wild boars, a wild animal that not only causes huge economic losses, but also threatens the environment and ecosystem. They reproduce at a dizzying speed, destroy crops, devastate forests, and cause heavy losses to farmers. In particular, they also have the ability to adapt quickly to all living conditions, making their control a huge challenge. Therefore, a comprehensive plan has been drawn up to prevent the invasion of this animal. The plan was implemented not only based on weapons, but also on the sophistication in setting traps and tracking the movements of wild boars. Everything was ready, and the dramatic hunt began. That day, we arrived at the meeting point. This was a large area of land where wild boars often appeared. I began to check the surrounding area, looking for traces of wild boars. Large, deep pig footprints imprinted on the wet ground led me to an area near a dense bush. This was where they often visited. After identifying the familiar paths of the pigs, I decided to set traps at these strategic points. The traps were cleverly designed, effectively capturing wild boars without causing harm to them. To attract them, I used corn and wheat as bait. The scent of these baits is irresistible to the wild boars. To ensure that the surveillance goes smoothly, I also placed some infrared cameras near the traps so that I can observe the movements of the wild boars at night. Once the traps were set, I moved to the neighboring area, where I could easily observe any movements without being detected. The whole team sat waiting, concentrating, preparing for the next attack. Using the remaining bait, I spread them out on an open field, then climbed a nearby tree to hide and wait. In my hand was the Henry carbine, a gun that stood out thanks to its fast-firing mechanism, ease of use, and powerful damage. 1 hour passed. At this time, I discovered a mature wild boar weighing about 90 kilograms approaching. Little did it know that this would be its last meal. I did not hesitate, raised my gun, aimed accurately, and pulled the trigger. The shot rang out. The wild boar collapsed to the ground. The remaining ones panicked and ran away, running in different directions. The chase began. I signaled to the team members, each taking charge of an area, coordinating closely to ensure that no one was left behind, while I continued to track and shoot down the large wild boars. The smaller ones quickly rushed into the dense bushes, trying to escape. However, with the speed and accuracy of the team members, they could not escape. Each shot was carefully calculated. A large male wild boar with shiny black fur and sharp tusks was taken down after an extremely accurate shot. I felt nervous, but also proud when I saw the spoils I had collected. After completing the chase, we went back to check the trap we had set earlier. I was quite surprised by the number of wild boars stuck in the trap. They were all large, adult animals. We handled each one carefully, making sure not to harm them when removing them from the trap. These wild boars weighed between 80 and 120 kilograms, with long, sharp tusks and bulging muscles. They were valuable trophies, but they also caused terrible destruction to the surrounding environment. After several hours of intense fighting, together with the trap I had set the night before, we had brought down more than 40 wild boars. Quite an impressive result. However, this number was still nothing compared to the huge number of wild boars in the area. Wild boars reproduce very quickly, and if left unchecked, they will continue to destroy crops, causing great damage to farmers. We know that, although we have controlled it somewhat, without a long-term and sustainable plan, the invasion of wild boars will never end. Thank you for following this journey. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. See you in the next videos. Although measures such as hunting are used in many countries to control wild boar populations, their effectiveness is limited due to the species' rapid reproduction. In Italy, for example, although hunters kill around 295,000 animals each year, the wild boar population is still increasing by 150% annually, an alarming figure. To improve the effectiveness of control, we not only rely on hunting, but also combine trapping with this method. This combination optimizes the killing ability, targeting even the most cunning individuals in the herd, thereby creating a stronger impact in limiting the wild boar population explosion. As usual, the traps are set in the evening, and we will return to check them the next morning. Everything was going according to plan until the surveillance system reported an unusual situation. A wild boar had fallen into the trap, but instead of accepting its fate, it frantically tried to escape. The camera recorded it struggling, climbing out of the trap before disappearing into the night. Without hesitation, the team immediately armed themselves, quickly approached the trap area, ready to track and kill it before it had a chance to recover. Since it was late at night, we had to use the thermal scope to search for the target. As soon as we arrived, we scanned the area, and a familiar figure immediately appeared before our eyes. It seemed to have gotten tired and was replenishing its energy. We cautiously approached the target. The wild boar was still unaware that it had been targeted. Choosing a suitable shooting angle, raising the gun, aiming straight at the target, and pulling the trigger, the wild boar collapsed heavily to the ground. The escaped target had been taken down. However, the story did not end there. This area was right near the edge of the forest, where wild boars often came to forage. After walking around, the scene before my eyes left me stunned. Wild boars were scattered everywhere, more in number than expected. In the darkness, they were completely unaware of our presence. This was an opportunity not to be missed. Immediately getting into position, when everything was ready, we opened fire simultaneously. After a hail of bullets, half of the wild boars were taken down, while the rest had already fled. After a hail of bullets, half of the wild boars had been taken down, while the rest had already fled. However, with the thermal scope in hand, no matter which direction the boars ran, we could easily track them. Prioritizing those that had separated from a herd, they became easy targets to take down without causing further commotion. Some of them panicked and ran towards the edge of the forest, but before they could disappear from sight, the accurate shots quickly ended their escape. There was no chance of escape. While tracking, we discovered a large herd of boars, moving in a herd and fleeing. Grasping their direction of movement, the group immediately accelerated and advanced to intercept them. Holding the gun firmly, when the herd of pigs appeared, immediately we opened fire at the same time. The first bullet was aimed straight at the leader of the wild boar, the one leading the herd. Then 1, 2, 3. One by one, the wild boars fell. After the rain of bullets, the battlefield was quieter, but there was still one survivor. A wild boar was bewildered, its bloodshot eyes staring at us, full of confusion, but also mixed with defiance. Without hesitation, I raised my gun, resolutely pulled the trigger, a perfect headshot that killed the wild boar in an instant. The sky gradually brightened. We began to move towards the farm after a night of intense pursuit. However, before we could relax, we discovered an unusual sign. A few cunning wild boars had sneaked inside, weaving among the herd of cows, taking advantage of the darkness to forage. The group immediately deployed their formation and approached carefully. Only about 50 meters away from the target, but the herd of pigs was still completely off guard, absorbed in digging without realizing the approaching danger. The atmosphere was more tense than ever. At this moment, every shot had to be absolutely accurate. A small mistake could cause the herd of cows to panic, causing uncontrollable chaos. The result was beyond expectations. In just a few seconds, the intruders were completely eliminated. The remaining pigs fled the farm in panic. After the intense battle, the dawn had just broken, dispelling the silence of the night. The resounding victory last night made the whole group excited, but at the same time, it also strengthened their determination to completely exterminate the wild boar herd to prevent future invasions. We speculated that the ones that had escaped must have retreated to the hills near the farm. Without hesitation, the whole group immediately moved, heading straight towards it. From the top of the mountain, through binoculars, we discovered the pigs lurking behind the trees. Quickly deploying tactics, we divided into small groups, silently ambushing in different positions. The gunshots echoed once more, ending all resistance. Each wild boar fell down on the spot. The wild boars in this area were not only huge, but also extremely cunning. However, no matter how agile they were, they had no chance of survival. Despite trying to run away, rushing at terrifying speed, gliding through each bush, looking for an escape route, the wild boar could not escape my bullets. It fell over and rolled down the slope. If we did not act promptly today, the consequences would be unpredictable. Deep in the heart of the American South, the state of Oklahoma is under relentless attack, not by an army, but by a creature many once thought harmless: wild feral hogs. An estimated 1.5 million feral hogs roam Oklahoma's fields, forests, and farms. Each year, they cause over $60 million in damages, destroying crops, tearing up irrigation systems, wrecking infrastructure, and even endangering the safety of local residents. So today, we came prepared with helicopters and high-powered weaponry, ready for a high-speed chase against the beasts that have been terrorizing the countryside. As the sun rose, our chopper lifted off. Below us, in the thin woods and torn-up cornfields, a herd of hogs was already on the move, tearing through the land like a living storm. We moved in fast, but don't be fooled, these hogs are not easy to catch. Every shot needs to be pinpoint accurate. A single misfire, and they'll vanish into the brush in seconds. Amid the roar of the rotors, I kept firing, aiming at the massive hogs sprinting below us across the churned-up fields. With aerial vision, Charlotte was landing her shots with deadly precision, each hog dropping in a cloud of dirt and dust. The helicopter circled the field, its engine screaming through the open sky. These hogs usually hide in thick brush or tall grass, but from the sky, they have nowhere to hide. One clean shot, and they're down on the spot. Suddenly, a large group burst out from ahead. The first shot dropped one instantly. The rest scattered in all directions, a textbook hog reaction, but it was too late. Every escape route had already been locked in. One by one, they were taken down by precision fire from above. In this chase, our instinct was no match for aerial speed and firepower. As we moved on to the next group, I kept firing, but missed. That's when I realized shooting from the air is a completely different game than hunting on the ground. It's exhilarating. After missing multiple targets, I began to adapt. Watching how my teammate handled his weapon, I mimicked his hand movements, adjusted my aim based on the herd's direction. I wasn't perfect, but I could feel myself improving. And I knew right then this kind of skill comes from rigorous training and experience. From above, we spotted movement in a thick patch of brush. We hovered, watching. The land here is dry and rugged. Maybe that's why the hogs in this region aren't particularly large. But don't be fooled. Even at just a few dozen kilos, they're more than capable of ripping through farmland and devastating crops. They adapt fast, and that's what makes them so dangerous. There are so many hogs here, The ones we've taken down today are just a small fraction of the whole. That's why our team remains determined not to let any get away. The herd scattered trying to flee, but it was no use. We stayed on them, hunting them down one by one. Our hunt stretched into the late afternoon. But as you can imagine, wild hogs continue to breed and hide, forcing helicopter hunting teams to fly missions every single week. This battle, no matter how thrilling, is far from over. Oklahoma, along with many other states, is still calling for more resources, tougher laws, and stronger community involvement to stop this invasive menace.